it says we're live. It'll take a second to populate. Oh, and I didn't verify how to say your first and last name. That was my foolish mistake. But I'm here with Courage for Democracy, and go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your
Yeah,
mission and what we can do to help you.
absolutely. My name is Kira Havens. I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran, and this work is how I'm serving my country right now. Courage for Democracy is the most recent iteration of the work we've been doing. We have been working on impeachment for just about a year now. Yeah, Liberation Day, when the tariffs came into play the first time, we got about 600 people together, and everybody emailed their rep all at the same time and said, "Y'all should impeach this man. He is a tyrant." We provided an article of impeachment on tyranny, and that did get picked up by a representative. And 3 weeks later, they brought it to the House floor as part of their impeachment resolution, and they were going to file that impeachment resolution under what's called Rule 9. And Rule 9 gives Congress, any member of Congress of the House, permission to raise a question of privilege. And that means that any member of the House can make an impeachment resolution, bring an impeachment resolution to the floor, and force a vote on it and put people on the record. Um, when that all happened, we were really excited because it only took about 3 weeks from that first email to when that
Wow.
article made it to the floor. So we knew from like firsthand experience that Congress could move really fast if they wanted to. And then what happened was Democratic leadership yelled at that member of Congress so hard that he pulled the articles. They went to the Judiciary Committee, and nobody has voted on them since. So for the past year, we have been pushing what is theoretically our opposition party to take some action here and impeach the
Yeah.
president and all his enablers. And they haven't really moved on that. We're seeing more articles of impeachment, but they all get referred to the judiciary. They don't get put to a vote. And so where Courage for Democracy was born was we said, well, if these folks aren't going to do it, if they're not going to do their job, then we're going to have to find people that will. And so Courage for Democracy now has 125 pro-impeachment candidates. They are pro-democracy. They are anti-corruption, anti-authoritarian, anti-oligarch, all things that should be a real easy bar for people to get over, right? But these times we got to say them out loud.
Oh man.
And yeah, we've organized them all by state, and these are the people that are going to be fighting for accountability and for you in this next election.
Oh, that's so fantastic. And I'm so excited about the organization. As I said, I managed one of my readers and listeners got me in touch with Chris Bennett in California,
Yeah.
and everybody on my site loved him. I mean, we're just like awesome. And I've been working really hard to interview as many candidates as possible. Francesca Hong, who's running for governor in Wisconsin, and Emily Berge and Ginger Murray. And what's been really exciting about it is all these candidates, the ones that are willing to come and talk to me and answer some hard questions. I mean, I don't ask hard questions. I'm just a dad, but these are questions guys like, Schumer and our kind of establishment Democrats just refuse to have those conversations.
Hmm.
So let me
Correct.
just, before we go any further, I would just offer you my platform. Any of these candidates that please put them in touch with me. I will interview them at any time at their disposal from now
Absolutely.
until the midterms. I want all of them on here. And there are growing, I'm putting pressure on more subscribers and creators, more creators on Substack to interview candidates because we know the legacy media is not going to cover these
This is
wonderful
true.
candidates that actually represent us. It's all owned. And so I think we can get visibility. I do feel it growing, but yes, I am your research, please. And it's just, and what's been so frustrating too is watching what should be, you said, theoretically our opposition party. Yet somehow every single time there's a Republican vote, we get one or two Democrat defectors that allow these votes to go through. And I always go back to the fact that in 2020, we gave the Democrats all the power they needed to stop this.
This is
They
correct.
had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency. And so I'm done listening to them. And so this idea of putting in representatives that work for us is something I am, yeah, every ounce of my power goes to you. So thank you for what you're doing.
Truly appreciate it. Well, and what you're doing is really unique. One of the things that we've been super surprised about is that nobody covers primaries, and
Oh,
primaries is where you get to choose the menu, right? I'm stealing this analogy from somebody, but you get to choose the menu for your general election. That's where you order your meal. But there is no visibility for most of these candidates. And I'm really glad that you talked to Chris Bennett because he's a great example of
cool.
what happens
Fantastic.
when you have folks that are actually showing up for the fight. So he is running in California 3. And the previous incumbent there, Rep. Kiley, has switched his party from Republican to Independent. And he is not seeking re-election against Chris Bennett. He has decided to kind of move over into a neighboring district, California 6. But joke's on him because we also have a courage candidate there, Tyler Vandenberg. So
Nice.
the goal here, right, is to put all of these candidates in touch with one another so that they know they're not doing this alone. Isolation is just a killer, man. And the truth
Yes.
is that there are there are a ton of us who want to step in and have a functional democracy, like a democracy where when you talk to a representative, they show up and say, "Thank you for talking to me. I'm going to do something about it." Right? It's a
Yep.
wild dream for those of us in the United States, but something that we are working towards. And it does take this type of visibility early on and often. And it takes a sort of courage from the constituency and the voters to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on this. I'm gonna follow this new guy and see where he goes.
Absolutely, and what you said is so critical, and it's by design that nobody covers the primaries. Emily Berge is running in my district, and the Washington Democrats told her not to run, and yet
Yeah,
she is out canvassing the state. And when you have multiple candidates who are out talking to the people in that district, you're getting them excited about the primaries. This is how you win, and this is how you create visibility for multiple other candidates that can then run for down the ballot offices that are also critical. And we have come to the conclusion, me and my thought tank here on Substack. I mean, we've seen how the Republicans, they start at school board level
sure.
and they use that, the power of that office, which doesn't pay very much. And we've seen that, like talking with Francesca Hong running for governor, she's currently a state representative. She's like, I have to take a second job because I can't get paid enough. So we have
Yep.
all these people that are in very, very important roles politically that aren't making enough to survive. And of course, then, okay, that's been taken advantage of by nefarious systems that then can buy these candidates, early on. And just we have to rethink this whole structure. But yeah, we need to be unapologetic. There is nothing wrong with running in a primary and giving the
Mhm.
people in your district the ability to choose who represents them. And too long, Washington, D.C. has put their finger on the primary with their offensive statements like electability, which is just racist or misogynistic half the time. And
Yeah.
and then they push through a candidate like that they claim is electable, who then loses. And then they always turn around and blame us again.
Well,
So
this
I guess I'm
this is
giving you a
the
lot to
cycle,
respond to.
right?
What's that?
No, I mean, I think it's really important to call out this cycle, and I'll just say, one there is a lot of fear from people who are so desperate for something better, right? But the system is set up so that it is very difficult to achieve that. And what ends up happening is, people get afraid that they can't take on the incumbent, and then they start, saying, "Well, you should drop out," right? Just kind of like what was
Yeah.
said to Francesca Hung. Um, we have two courage candidates in New Jersey 6. They're running against an incumbent named Frank Pallone. And the constituency there, this is one of the primary concerns of that constituency. They really want to replace Pallone, but they're afraid having two people will distract that vote. And my response to them is, who should drop out of that race is Pallone. No one likes you, right? The incumbent needs to step down. Let the good people fight it out. Now, when that may seem like pie in the sky, but I will say, when you show up with the fight, with a legit fight that you are not going to back down on,
Yes.
folks actually step away from this. I just mentioned Representative Kiley, right? In Montana, you had a senator that last minute decided, nope, not going to go for reelection again. That'll let him kind of tap his preferred successor on the shoulder. We already had a courage candidate in place there. This is Alani Bankhead. She's a
Awesome.
former U.S. Air Force lieutenant colonel, has done policing and investigation into child sex trafficking cases. She is a candidate for this moment. She's amazing. The same is true in Maryland 5, where we have Steny Hoyer, who has been there for I don't even know how long, for a million years, right? And in that race we have two courage candidates again. And when they started, Hoyer was planning on running again, and he decided, nope, not worth the fight. Same is true actually in Montana again with Zinke, who is stepping down. And again, one of our courage candidates in the race, Russ Cleveland, right? Showing up to fight is the key because these people haven't had to fight for like 30 years, sometimes literally. They're
Yes.
just not up for it. And if you show up and you say, well, I'm not backing down,
Yes.
they'll step out of the way. for,
Yes.
a remarkable number of cases, something that surprised me, that's for sure.
And what you're saying, like we can't let fear determine what we do. And I know that all the way up to the last couple elections, I've just been kind of listening to the establishment message where it's like, well, this is the safe thing, and so much is at stake. It got that message got us here. That being fearful is what got us here. And so, the day of the election, the next day, it's like, nope, from now on, it's going to be integrity. And,
Mhm.
it's just pressure. Bullies always just use pressure. I mean, if you've been through, you see like discovery in legal cases, they want to push, push, push for a settlement because when discovery happens, everything changes. And we're in this perpetual state of just like, well, this is the way it's going to be. And they're just alluding to these old corrupt traditions. And exactly as you said, just take it to the finish line. That's why they play the games. It's like the other team might be favored by 200 points. Well, let's just put in the effort. And I always tell the candidates I talk to, it's like, it's not, don't be results oriented. Just running is enough. Having these conversations is enough. And when I'm able to talk to people and we can use the messaging of everyday people and have that become part of the national spotlight, the national political spotlight, because these candidates will get on debate stages, win or lose, they're talking about these issues that are important to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
and it continues to
this
grow.
is
So
why
again,
we
thank you for organizing all this. I love
yeah,
this. I'm excited.
well, this is part of why we stepped in with the candidates. We did the whole 9 yards. We set up a pact,
Mm,
so, just so that we could work with them officially, and uh, the that process of saying, "Well, here's the format and here's the structure where how you this is how you go about building political power," right? This is the first step towards actually sustaining this fight for the long term, right? This is
yes.
why you ask for fundraising and for donations, and this is why you build out networks that can't vanish in the blink of an eye. You mentioned a little bit about the right wing and how they approach school boards. Well, they're not doing that on their own, right? They are doing that with the backing of of people with money that decide that this is how they want to fight. And so we've made that decision and open invitation to anybody here and in the audience who wants to support us in that fight. But when you have the community coalesce around the idea that, oh no, we are not ceding this ground, this is ours, a lot can change very, very quickly. And it inspires others to get in the fight as well. We actually thought that once primaries started, we would see a slowdown in the number of people saying, I want to be a courage candidate. That is not true. That is picking up, and folks are just saying, I want to be a part of this at much faster rates. And these are people that have run before. These are people with long histories of participation in the Democratic Party um, who are taking advantage of this pivotal moment where we're seeing state races at least swing by 20 or 30 points.
Yes.
There's no reason to stay off the playing field this year.
Yeah. And that's a good opportunity. Let me just ask where people can find you, the name of the pack, the
Yeah.
name of your webpage.
Yeah, it is Courage for Democracy PAC. We are the action committee. One of the things that we stay focused on is what are you going to do? So every single candidate that we have endorsed has pledged to introduce articles of impeachment on day one of their campaign.
Yep.
As citizens impeachment, we have put together articles on tyranny, treason, and obstruction of justice. They have all been endorsed by constitutional scholars. One of them, as I said, actually made it to the floor of the House in a formal impeachment resolution. These are legit and they are tools that Congress could use right now if they wanted to. And we spent 11 months asking them if they want to use them. And if they don't, we're going to replace them and replace them with people who will use them and start to hold this administration accountable.
Yep. And what's the webpage again?
That is couragefordemocracy.com for the candidates, and it's citizensimpeachment.com for all of your impeachment related inquiries.
Perfect.
Mhm.
And what
And
you're
you
saying,
guys oh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, everybody can write their own article. I am not a formal like a lawyer by training. I'm a scientist. But articles of impeachment, everybody can write them. And there are 3,000 different anti-democratic actions that you can pull from to write these articles. Write your own, post it on Facebook, say ask your representative to pick it up. They can do it at any time.
Oh, and what you're saying is something we've been talking about, my friends here. Like, there's never really been this humanitarian movement. And like, because people keep underestimating what the right's doing. It's like it took a lot of money to write Project
Absolutely.
2025, and there's lawyers obviously sitting in rooms somewhere. Well, we need to create a counter to that. And one of the real
Yeah.
frustrate, and that's what you're doing. I know, and
I
I
have I have a very exciting, tool. If you go to courageForDemocracy.com, there's a policy matrix. So all of our candidates, all 125 of them, have answered just a policy survey about what are you aligned on, right? The whole point of this is not just to get 1 or 2 people into office, it's to build that political block and that political basis. And so we have folks, we go through, economic measures, right? Should we continue to have money in politics? Yes or no? Do you want to overturn Citizens United? And since the whole theme of this work is courage, there's not a taboo. There's nothing that is too much to ask, right? If you want that better future, you are going to have to dream about that better future right off the bat. So we have put it all on the table. Check out the
Whew,
policy matrix.
you're making me feel just kind of relief right now because it's been like, oh, it's nice hearing somebody else kind of finish my thoughts before I even get to my ass.
Beautiful,
So
beautiful.
I appreciate that. And one of the things we've been talking about is just the complete failure of the current crop of Democrats to organize their messaging.
Mm,
It was came up the
mhm,
other day. It's like
mhm.
it's not even common knowledge that they've tried to get the TSA funded like 8 straight times. People don't even know.
11 now.
Was
Yep,
it 11? See, that's
yep,
that's an example. They're so bad at it. And I've been saying things like, quit even talking about taxing billionaires. Just stop giving them free money, like end billionaire welfare. And I've started to say these things and have the candidates I've talked to where they start picking it up. I say, let's
yep.
stop teaching US history like it's the redacted Epstein files. And then maybe when we'll do that, we'll start to see that a lot of these institutions we revere are inherently corrupt because we're not telling the truth about them. And just the more we can make statements like that, there's no place in the country where
Absolutely.
you can go and say, gee, I'm tired of turning over your hardworking taxpayer dollars to some billionaire whose business is failing. It's like, why do we have to have our back against the wall economically all the time? And they just get our free money all the time.
Yep.
But just like the structure is so established so that people just are resigned to not have a government that works for them. And I think this is the
Oh.
language that helps change that.
Well, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the messaging too. I think there is certainly an element where Democrats continue business as usual, and I say this as someone who has had meetings with staffers who say, "Nope, we're going to continue our business as usual," with the thought that it will actually make a difference, that somehow by putting the appropriations into place, that this administration will respect the appropriations, even though all the evidence is to the contrary, right? Where we're just yoinking duly appropriated funds from basically everywhere at every time and illegally firing people. Um, what we have seen and what I'm really like remarkably encouraged by is that when we use language that sticks, the Democrats pick it up. When ICE invaded Chicago, when they invaded Minneapolis, we started saying this is a paramilitary force. This is a paramilitary force deployed over and above the objections of state officials charged with the safety and security of these states, and this is treason. And they picked up the bit about the paramilitary force coming after American citizens and being deployed to American cities. That is how it is being described,
Mhm.
right? Another thing that we talk about is that impeachment is how the Constitution says no kings. You cannot say no kings. You cannot ask for the king not to be there if you're not willing to remove the king from office. And that starts with impeachment. It's
Yeah.
a real simple demand that anybody going to one of these protests can make this weekend. Connect the dots. Sure, you don't want a king. You're going to have to take action to get there. And
Yeah.
that means impeachment. This is part of the reason why we stand very firmly on the fact that this is not a partisan approach. This is not a partisan activity here. Impeachment is written down in the Constitution as the remedy for an official that is unfit for their job. Uh, if you have a US official that is violating the Constitution and abusing their power, the remedy is impeachment. Full stop. And if you, as an elected representative, raise your hand to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, as did many other members of the federal government and service members, right? Impeachment is how you make that happen. You're one of 435 people that can start that process. That is your power. and you
Yeah.
can use it at any time.
Yeah. And so much of what's going on right now is clearly a consequence of the American public being browbeaten into believing they don't have power. And I never really honestly, these last 2 years have showed me that, yes, it is government by the consent of the governed. We do have this power. We've seen these examples bit by bit, though, and the media doesn't help us here, though, and they're not picking up it to the extent that we need, and that's why we're seeing this mass exodus to platforms like Substack, where new media is growing up because people are tired of hearing those same things. But I'm finding it is just this massive effort to come up with these new phrasings, these new things that we need to be talking about because we're kind of conditioned to do things the old way. One of the great creators here on Substack is Ellie Leonard, and she's been one of the primary people digging into the Epstein files. And
Mhm.
I mean, just which is showing us a level of corruption that a decent human being can't even imagine.
Yeah.
The truth of what's out there. And again, it's like, how are we even? They have not arrested any of them, and that goes back several administrations, honestly. And it's just
Absolutely.
like the level of corruption of just so many that are out there. We're talking about child rapists, and I think we need to just say these words
Yeah.
because it's like if your neighbor, I think we can believe that our neighbor will stand up and stop a child rapist, and it's
We've seen it actually. There's
yeah,
one of the talks that I do is just about lobbying, and one of the questions I get all the time is, what if my representative is a Republican?" And and the answer there is, "Well, very sorry, they swore the same oath that all of their other colleagues did, and they don't get to choose whether or not they uphold that oath. They have to. They're obligated. That is the
yeah,
oath that they took." And when it push comes to shove, especially around something like Epstein that does actually cross all of the party lines and unites the entirety of the United States, they fold. They fold like a cheap deck of cards.
mm,
The Epstein Files Transparency Act, yeah, it took a little bit to get that out of committee. It required one Republican, or well, I guess three,
yeah,
to stand up and say, you know what, this is wrong. I'm going to take this forward with the discharge petition. But as soon as that vote was forced, as soon as that piece of legislation was
yeah,
extracted from the committee and forced on the floor of the House, that passed by 427 to 1. There is one guy in Louisiana who is like, nah, we don't need to deal with this, right? But everybody else voted for it because they cannot withstand that pressure, and it requires a vote to force them. So right now, there are 2 impeachment resolutions in committee for Attorney General Bondi. There's 2 of them because they don't talk to each other and they don't work together. They are both sitting in committee and they are both going to die there if the co-sponsors do not take these articles out and force a vote on them. But if they force a vote on them, they are forcing a vote with the same group of people that nearly unanimously voted for the Epstein
mhm,
File Transparency Act. And somehow these dots are extremely difficult for these people to connect. They don't think through the fact that we have already demonstrated a willingness to move in support of a full and transparent investigation of this heinous crime and criminals and everybody associated with them, and that they could use that as leverage to uh, not only address the specific source of this obstruction of justice, but also to make it a referendum on the boss that is demanding this obstruction. So one of that's obstruction of justice is one of our articles of impeachment as well. We wrote it back in October. It took Congress another, 6 months to actually get to theirs and file theirs. But this is a place where we could all show up and say,
mhm,
"Hey, we need to address this. Impeach Pam Bondi now. This is unacceptable. She spent 100 days in violation of federal law. The entirety of the United States is in opposition to this." It's not it's kind of it's not just like the expedient thing to do. It's not just like the moral thing to do. It's actually the popular thing to do. And we just need someone with a spine to do the popular thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's fascinating, though. I've read so many things about how popularity really doesn't dictate a lot of what our current form of government does, and
because it's not responsive. Yeah,
oh, yeah, and boy, I you got my head spinning in a really good way, and I hope we have from now until the midterms 100 more talks, and all you bring in all these other I can bring in more people, but just like the rousing the people. And I get so many people that write to me, what can I do? And it's not, it's not, and everything we get out of the establishment Democrats is, just wait till the midterms. We need to do things today. We need to do things. You're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
things today. I
Would you
applaud you
like
for
a
that.
list?
Yes, I would. I was getting to that. Please, a list, please.
Awesome. So Citizens Impeachment does actions every Monday. You sign up with us, we'll give you, an email that you can write. Sometimes we'll give you a script for a phone call. That's one thing. You can write a letter to the editor. They hate seeing their name in print in a negative connotation. They loathe it. And so put their name in the newspaper and say, "You are not doing enough. You're not doing your job. If you need help with that, there's resources on the site."
Mm,
If you go to a protest, put their name on that sign and make sure somebody from the paper takes a picture and tell them, if they were doing their job, I would not be out here,
mm,
right? Make sure it is clear every time you go to one of these protests that the responsibility for action stays with your representative,
okay.
because often what they will do is they will say words that sound right and agree, like, "Oh, I agree with you," right? And then they will tell you to do more work. No, they need to do the work of actually making their deeds line up with their actions. So yeah, signing up with us for the Monday actions, letters to the editor, putting that representative's name onto protest signs, huge. Get old school, man. Print out some flyers and say Rep so and so is a failure.
Mm,
And just they should have impeached, right? And just stick that up in your neighborhood. It is really the analog pieces of this that do catch attention just because they're so rare. Um, and quite frankly, guys, uh, it seems like we have had the best results from just bullying people. So if you see your representative making a statement online, and like most of these people have accounts with, 1,000 followers, they are not social
mhm.
media gurus. If you sign up and you spend your time saying, you are not doing enough, we are in crisis, what is your plan to act on their official social
Yeah.
media page, it is likely that you will get a response or you will push these people into action, because that is one of the shame is one of the most powerful tools we have right now. And while I would appreciate, like, I have worked in professional capacities for most of my life, and I am used to people that are interested in getting the job done, but that doesn't seem to be where we are. So,
Oh, and then yeah, and it's always that the left seems to adhere to this outdated sense of ineffective decorum. The right never does, and they'll say things that are just blatantly untrue, and they're always loud, and I think I keep trying to just give people permission to do a lot of what you say. It's like, go ahead, you're okay. It's okay to be mad about these
yeah.
things. And I'll start screaming, but it's different. It's like a white man gets a privilege of screaming in ways, but it's like, well, that's my privilege then. I'll start screaming
Well,
because other people can't.
I mean, let me just say that, like, am I allowed to curse on here? Is that all
Yes,
right? Have
absolutely.
you
You can do whatever you want.
have you seen, like, "fuck you" in corporate speak? Like, where you need to put someone else in line and you have to do it without using curse words?
Yeah, yeah.
If you have that skill, if you have ever worked in a corporation, if you have had to deal with people trying to shift blame on you, all
Yeah.
you need to do is put those skills to work here and explain, like, "As per my last 30 emails, which you have not responded to, I need to know what you plan to do about situation X. I am CCing your boss, my community." It's the same type of escalation. Um,
Yeah.
the the easy way out, right, is for them to ignore you, and so step 1 is become unignorable, right? Next, they will explain to you why they can't do this, and that, at least in my experience when it comes to impeachment, is a lie. They will lie to your face about how they do not have power, um, and part of this project is knowing as much as you possibly can to be able to call them out on that bullshit when it happens. That's something that I do for people that have their, meetings with their reps. If you are a member of the group and you let us know you have a meeting, I will show up and I will say, "I apologize, sir, that is not correct. You have told this person a falsehood and here's why." And we will and we'll continue the conversation from there because they're not used to pushback that demands accountability and action from
Oh.
them.
I think what you just said is wonderful. I mean, there's different types of messaging, and I'm just basically on the wild west of the internet. And but then there's like the the community meetings and the town hall meetings and all these other places you can go. I was just thinking, hey, use generative AI
Yeah.
to write your letters to the editor. Write 1,000 of them. Send them in
I'm if you're able to
there.
I would strongly encourage you to write it as an actual human and do not get hung up on the actual words. It
Mm,
Just write it and send it and keep track of it, and then demand that they respond and use that line, "Per my last 30 emails." I use 30
yes.
because I just talked with Catherine Clark's office, and there were 30 emails from our members that they never responded to, and a meeting from the indivisible chapter, and a meeting with one of
Yes.
our volunteers. And we still don't have an answer as to whether or not Representative Clark is going to support impeachment after the midterms, which is absurd. This is an
Yeah.
easy layup question. You should just be able to say yes or no,
And
right?
when you keep track of that too, and you keep those receipts, it helps fortify you. And because sometimes they
Mhm.
just coerce us into thinking, "Oh, you're being unreasonable." They make us think that. I mean, the way they weaponize rhetoric
Oh,
to make us retreat. That's a big thing where I'm just constantly. We don't even see all the ways that they do it to us. But yeah, as you keep track of the receipts, I've complained about this person all these different times. As much as it gains weight in your complaint, it also helps you keep going. You're talking about mainly targeting, writing our representatives or what groups? The congressional representatives or just any
yeah.
state level position?
So it's crucial to understand that everybody's got a role to play, right? Executive branches do things. They are the people that can take action. We've kind of watched it with the way Mom Donnie responded to the snowfall, right? The first major snowfall that they had, sidewalks stayed really clogged up and covered in snow. The second one, he was like, "Screw that! We're going to pay everybody like a decent wage, and we're going to get this stuff done immediately."
Yeah.
And you can make that type of quick decision. So if you are facing a data center that's being built in your backyard, or if you are worried about your local cops working with ICE through the 287G. So you can reach out to these organizations directly and say, "Hey, I need to know what is happening here. What is your plan for when ICE comes through?" Right? What is your plan for this data center? Did it go through the proper zoning? And it does take a little work to understand, what the specifics are of the situation, but I promise you, there are people in your community working and fighting on these things. And there are examples elsewhere that you can bring in to your community. When it comes to legislators, legislators provide the foundation, right, for the rules that will be executed. At the federal level, this is what is supposed to be happening here is that Congress is supposed to be making the rules and the executive is supposed to be executing them, right? But Congress is a half dead, entity that doesn't really believe it's a co-equal branch of government. So what we end up with is we end up with a lot of people writing things and then just not doing anything with them, right? I gave the example of the two articles of impeachment for Bondi that are just kind of stuck in committee and not doing anything there. When you reach out to these people, the two things you need to remember are that they do have the power. These are some of the most powerful people in the world. If they wanted to do a thing, they would find a way to do it, right? Just like with Epstein, that small
Mm,
coalition of 4 folks said, "You know what? I want to get these Epstein files out into the public view. We are gonna figure out how to do it." And they did with the discharge position. So these folks, they have resources, man. They have a congressional research
yeah.
service. They've got people that can write these articles for them. They can do this. They just don't want to. So, when you approach your representatives and your legislators, be sure to say, "I know that you have the capacity to do this," right? There's no rule preventing it, and I'm talking specifically about impeachment. "I know that this is a choice you are making not to act." And then the second thing you have to do is you have to tie it back to your power as a constituent. And you say, "I will not vote for someone that does not stand up for the people of their community," right? That I will not vote for someone that cannot use their power to hold this administration accountable.
Mhm.
And then just go public with it. That's it, right? Take a screenshot, stick it up on Instagram, tag them. Don't be afraid of censure.
Yeah.
They eh, if they didn't want to be called out, they would do better.
Yes. And I wanna emphasize too, this is across the board. This is Democrat and Republican. This is everybody we need to pressure. And because we saw with that with the Epstein release, the Republicans did come around, and it is tempting to just be like, "Oh," and, this is the early problem. The ones that are in office right now, we can pressure, and then
Well,
as we
mm,
ongoing have them move to have them replaced with better candidates.
yeah, and let's talk about how they came around, right? Because it wasn't like anybody had a big, bold change of heart. What
Mm,
happened was they forced a vote. They
mm,
could not avoid it, and they decided en masse to shift. It's the forcing the vote piece. It's the making it unavoidable piece that causes that change. You can't reason your way into it. You can't, I mean, maybe there's a representative that you could talk eloquently to and convince them to do something different. But I have not yet come across that person. What what does seem to move the needle is being absolutely unyielding and demanding action and votes.
mm. I it's so important, the dynamic of what we're discussing here, 'cause a lot of it is running counter to just the mainstream messaging that comes out of the establishment Democrats as much as it does the Republicans, and, uh, and this is why, because my approach to this, while you were out organizing all this wonderful stuff that you've been doing, I'm just like, "I'm just gonna go interview primary candidates with the hope that
Mm,
I could say some of
right.
the things that worry me, and that then they get on a debate stage and start talking about those things a little bit more." But using it, and I've found over this last 2 years, is just like using the small media. The more candidates that come and talk to me, the bigger this gets, the more power then we all get, where, this message gets more and more attention because people are looking for it. And the only reason we're not big and getting growing bigger is because there's a deliberate effort to suppress us. I mean, it would be nice if members of the Democratic establishment, if Pete Buttigieg came and talked to me or Kamala Harris, all of a sudden my platform would be all this much bigger. And then I could promote these new candidates and but they just refuse to do that. It would take them 10 minutes in their car with a Substack app to just talk to me for a few minutes and help lift this up. I don't know. What do you feel about the opposition of the establishment that we have to face right now?
Man, it is exhausting, and let me tell you, like, for the last 10 months, for the last year that we've been doing this work, um, there has been article after article after article about how the Democrats are in a frenzied rage because a rogue member of their coalition is pushing for impeachment, right? They are frustrated that their base wants them to do more, right?
Ugh,
And
yeah.
they write these articles over and over again, right, to paint the base as unreasonable and everything. What's really wild is that every time we have moved a step closer to impeachment, one of these articles would come out like clockwork. Same journalist, always Andrew Solinder, same outlet,
Yeah.
always Axios, right? Um, and and the question that I have for them is just, what if instead of fighting this citizen-led movement, because you can't stop it, you can't stop me, you can't stop the 13,000 people that are doing this, what if you decided to lead it? What if you decided to get out in front and said, "Okay, we're gonna do the thing that the people want"? From April of 2025, their polling has suggested that a majority of American voters want impeachment to happen. Why would you not pick this up as a fight? Why would you not force your
Yeah.
opposition to go on record as defending Jeffrey Epstein and concealing his crimes? Why would you not want to be at the head of what is a sustained and ongoing citizen movement? Because I tell you what, if someone had listened to me earlier, I wouldn't have gathered these 125 candidates.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because a lot of it, the media is owned by these oligarchs, and they do that social engineering and programming. People are waking up to it. And the example I always use is when a commercial comes on the radio or the television, our brains just shut off, right? Because we know that we're getting to that level with oligarch owned media where we just kind of shut off. Still though, like the comments, all the bot comments we get, but just the pressure to make us stop, and every now and then we do get these moments where we push through. I'm so excited to just talk to more of your candidates too, and
Yeah.
just and I've been finding I just get up in the morning now and just talk for 2 hours a lot of time, and
Perfect.
it's just listening to things that people say because I've got an experience in the media. I've always been writing articles. I know when I worked with Medium, I used to identify human written content over AI content. It was kind of my thing. That's why it's unusual for me to be like, well, it's a tool there. Let's use this tool to our advantage if we can. But, yeah, the what I'm finding is we just have to get that message out there and just the overwhelming effort because all the money, it wants to maintain the status quo system, and we do have to make this deliberate effort to fight the messaging battle because bit by bit, and I'm seeing them, they're coming, more people are coming, and they're awakening, and it's just sort of like the membrane of deceit is becoming transparent, and I'm feeling like all we have to do is reach forward and touch it and it'll rip away and then we'll have this moment of realization. But yeah, it's people like you doing all this work that make that possible.
Well, I mean, I hope everyone listening knows that it takes all the lanes, right? It takes all of the folks. We do need another media arm, and we do need a new, political union to support these new candidates, and we do actually need folks that are doing, your everyday letter writing and phone calls, and especially if those folks gather together their people to do this every, week, come together. You don't all need to show up at the same time. It's actually harder to manage, many little individual actions because they keep showing up. And, just as a fun thought experiment, right? Say you wanted to call every 15 minutes about impeachment. If you wanted to do that during a work week, you'd just need 160 people. And you just need everybody to pick a time slot once. And then maybe you only wanted to do it for 1 week. That's fine. Find somebody to take your time slot. And if we were organizing that type of collective action, which is, I'm not saying 150 people is a small number, but it's an achievable number. And if we were able to construct that, you would have offices that couldn't do anything but answer the phone about impeachment for weeks. And these are people that just want to do their job, which they do not see as handling the democratic crisis that we are in.
And if nothing else, it stops them from doing just heinous acts because they're busy, like
Yeah.
answering those phone calls. One of the things that's clear is that what we're facing right now is not just the guy in the office. In fact, I think he got put there. We've got a very big structure of corruption we have to dismantle. So, I mean, what you're building right now, I mean, you have plans for this to continue ongoing beyond this election and then to work on
Yeah.
all those other, offices down the ballot.
Yeah, so this is, in order for us to continue, in order for us to sustain ourselves, we need support, and we need support from grassroots folks because the establishment is not going to help us out in anchoring this movement, right? But we have already started to build out a pipeline. We have a code of ethics at Courage for Democracy, and that code of ethics begins basically with I believe my constituents are people, and I believe that I am obligated to be responsive to them. So again, low bar. Everybody should be able to get over this, but we felt it was necessary to write this explicitly at this point in time.
Yes.
And we've adapted this code of ethics for, we're in the process of adapting it for state level candidates. We don't have the resources right now to work with state level candidates. We're limited to federal folks, but there are people at the state level that want to participate in this movement and want to be able to say, "I am here for responsive government." So we're building out that opportunity there. And you're totally right about the the executive branch in and of itself, right? Yeah, sure, we need to get rid of that guy, right? And all the folks that are enabling him. But what we actually need is a functional Congress as a co-equal branch of government. And in order to do that, we are going to have to be in this for at least 6 years. If we want to be able to get to truly having a shot at replacing the Senate in a meaningful way, we are going to have to be around for the long haul. So I am actively working to build that coalition of folks willing to support this work now and in the future. But we are absolutely here through the midterms, and if we can find that support, we will be here for the foreseeable future.
Are you having any elected candidates join in yet, or is it still entirely guys running for primaries right now?
Yeah, so Our very first, the first person with the potential to be in office is Ana Lulia Meija, who ran in New Jersey 11 for the vacated governor's seat, or vacated House seat. Mickey Sherrill is not the governor. Her team came to us to say they wanted to be a courage candidate right before the primary. That primary, of course, was really contentious, and she won by maybe 1,000 votes. And her election is coming up, and so this is going to be the first real test of this work. You know, will she get into office? One, and when she is in office, will she use her power as pledged?
Mm.
So this is that's kind of the first step for us. Our next round of primaries, we've done Arkansas, Texas, Illinois, and North Carolina, and we have 8 candidates going through to the general. 2 that won their primaries outright, 5 that were uncontested because Democrats just don't fight in a lot of
Yeah.
areas, and then 2 that are in runoffs in Texas. And you can find. I'll give you a press release. We'll share all those names and everything.
Excellent.
Um, and then the next round, we're going to see folks in Indiana and Georgia and Louisiana. And in June, that's when the big primaries are. So
Okay. Yes. I think it's so important what you're saying too, and just this idea of just respecting the rights of all human beings needs to be fundamental to our form of government. And it just
yeah.
is that not been the case? Well, obviously, because all of our founding fathers owned human beings as property. That's kind of a problem. And it's something that needs to be addressed at some point. So I'm glad we're taking steps in that direction. But it's also critical, this ongoing interest in our government. We can't just celebrate Democrats getting elected. It has to be the right kind of Democrats, like you said, the ones willing to use their power and
Well, and we have a couple independents too. I don't care
Us
what your label is, as
oh,
long as you are willing to actually, do what you're uphold the oath that you swear when you step into office, right? Um, we even had one Republican for a minute. She was running in North Carolina 14. Her name is Kate Barr, and she was running as a Republican because her district had been gerrymandered into oblivion, and that was the only way that she thought she would be able to get her voice heard. So that's what she chose to do. At the end of the day, they're all just labels, right? You should have the
yeah,
integrity to actually make good judgments about what policies to pursue, not simply just toe the party line all the time.
yeah. And have you talked with Leaders We Deserve at all? That organization?
We haven't actually, not yet. We have a little bit of crossover with Justice Democrats. We share
Okay.
several candidates. We have a number of candidates in the Track APAC where they pledged not to take APAC money. But Leaders We Deserve, we haven't connected with yet. Would
Um,
love.
okay. Well, I'll see what I haven't talked with them yet either, but I know a couple people that might be able to. Emily Berge
Yeah.
is the candidate I know the best. I don't know if you've contacted her.
Yeah. So it's a different process for gubernatorial candidates, right? Because
She's
they're
Congress. Emily Francesca
oh,
Hong was governor, and Emily Berge was Congress.
I don't think she's on our list yet.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
I'll
ton of
mention.
people running, and so I would love to
Yeah.
connect with anybody. I think I saw a comment earlier where someone said my candidate isn't on your list. And yeah, if you know of a candidate that needs to be on the list, connect us. The requirements are real simple. Pledge to initiate impeachment when you get into office, and be pro democracy and anti corruption.
Oh, and then yeah, the more we can do things like this, like I said, I'm at your service. I want to just talk to these people all the time, and let me just tell you too, like we get used to watching the news, and it's just like the same old people saying things that are clearly untrue. And so then I get to talk to somebody like you who's brilliant and has integrity, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why isn't everybody that we get to see in the media like this all the time? So you've made me feel a lot happier and like I'm not as alone. So I think
No,
just for
nobody's
nothing else,
alone
I thank you
there.
for that.
Thank you. We're all fighting in this together, and can't say enough about how impeachment is just the first step. Like, really, we think of it as a yes and kind of thing, right? Yeah, we need to get this piece of the puzzle done, but we also, as you said, need to build out that huge policy matrix. We need to paint that vision of the future for those of us who are going to like be living in the future. There's going to be an after this, and we got to get to it somehow. So.
Yeah, and I'm finding it's such a moment of joy to have multiple candidates, being able to talk with them and just kind of have real discussions that aren't really controlled. It's like we're not kids. We're not in 3rd grade anymore, right? We don't need a moderator. We can have conversations like adults about what kind of future we want. And again, we've
Absolutely.
submitted to this kind of system where we just are silenced. So
Yep.
bit by bit. Let me go through it one more time. We got a couple minutes left, but yeah, give us your web pages where people can find you and summarize real quick so that people can come
Yep.
support you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's, couragefordemocracy.com. That's where all of the candidates are. That's where you can see our policy matrix. That's where you can meet Pancake, the blind dog with 3 legs that has just all the fight. He's our mascot. And
Well,
then if you wanna get involved in the impeachment fight specifically, come to citizensimpeachment.com. That's where you can sign up for Monday morning actions, and that's where we tell you stories about your feckless congressional people. And how they could be doing so much more.
and everybody here and who's going to will be watching the replay, just restack this, share this, talk about these ideas, tell your friends about these ideas. I love the one of the first things I ever did was write a letter to the editor back in 2015 that got shared 250,000 times, and it's just like they do make it does make an impact. All those little things, they add up, they're huge. So none of it, and I mean, the main thing is just that frustration we constantly feel like, what can we do? There actually is a lot that we can do in these little acts. It's like we don't make the focus just, removing, impeaching the president. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of things. All these little steps along the way are so
Man,
important.
if I have my way, not only will we go through the whole executive branch, but we'll get into the Supreme Court too. Now that I know how to write these, I'll write them for everybody. It's fine.
I love it. Oh, that was so empowering and wonderful. This is I gotta get your name right. Kira Havens. I said
That's
it right?
right. That's me.
Delightful. And yeah, please put me in touch with as many candidates as possible, and I'll start up some networks. I want you to talk with Ellie Leonard and
Yeah.
just to get some more language about what's in these Epstein files. It's really powerful stuff for winning elections. And yeah, our silence is not effective. We have to be loud,
This
and
is
we are
correct.
winning. I feel. I think we're getting there.
Yep. Thank you
Oh,
so much, Bobby.
yep.
This has
Thanks so
been great.
much. I loved it. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you. Thanks to everybody listening.
Take care.
Bye.